Something that I've really found people really struggle with is finding a foundation that's going to match their skin tone. And not be too warm or too cool for them. I know I struggled with it for a really long time because I thought because I was brown, I was a warm skin tone, and that's not the case. I'm actually very neutral. And until I figured that out, I had such a hard time matching my skin tone because I always tried to go warm and then I would look orange. And so I don't want you guys to fall into the same mistakes that I did. So, so I kind of want to go over that with you. So what I did is I mixed up, and these don't exactly match my skin tone, but I mixed up a few. I'm going to try to show you foundations that kind of represent like a warm, a cool, and a more neutral. They don't quite match my skin tone, but I'm gonna make it work because I think that's the best way of showing you. So I've definitely found over the years, as I've been doing makeup on people, as I've worked as a cosmetologist, that there are a few ways to really like zone in on skin tone. And there's a few questions that you can ask yourself in order to figure it out. So the first question is, what color jewelry do you wear? And this is a good like baseline. So this isn't always accurate, just keep that in mind, because some people that are cooler toned like to stick with gold tone jewelry, but generally speaking, most people that are cool toned like silver jewelry. The same thing goes for most people that are warm toned, they tend to like gold jewelry. And typically, if you're more neutral, you tend to switch between them. Maybe you like one more than the other, but it doesn't really matter which one you get. I know for myself, I prefer silver jewelry, but I could do gold jewelry just fine, and it would be, it would look all right. The second question is, what's in your closet? Do you tend to have more oranges, reds, pinks, stuff like that? Or do you tend more towards greens, blues, purples? Because if you tend more toward those reds and oranges, you probably are more warm toned. Versus if you tend more towards those purples and blues and that stuff, you probably are a little bit more cool toned. If it's a nice mix in between, then you're probably more neutral. I know that most people actually, whether they're warm or cool toned, doesn't matter. Most people can wear the primary colors with the exception of one. So I would say like most cool toned people are going to stay away from yellow for obvious reasons. With more warm toned people, they're probably going to stay away from one of the primary colors as well. Honestly, weirdly enough, probably yellow. So that's just like a good rule of thumb. The last thing is white. If you tend to wear white versus off-white, that's going to give you a pretty good indication of your skin tone as well. People that are cooler toned do tend to stick with like a true white, versus people that are warmer toned tend to stick with a more off-white cream color because it just tends to look better on them. Now keep in mind that if you have freckles, that may change your skin tone. Some people are like warm, but they're also neutral, so they lean more towards the warm side, but they are a neutral. So keep that in mind. I definitely find that the shade of your foundation doesn't matter as much as the tone of your foundation. So what I mean by that is that if you pick a shade that's too warm for you, it's going to show a lot more than if you pick a shade that's a little bit too dark or light for you. Or if you pick a shade that's too cool for you, people will notice a lot more than if you pick a shade that's lighter or cooler for you. So let me just show you an example. So I said that I was more neutral, right? So when you're looking at people and trying to determine skin tone, the other thing that I ask myself, and this is what always helps me, a lot of people go by their veins and how their veins look, but I've always looked at their undertones of their skin. So when you're looking at someone, if they have more of like a pinkish or a reddish tint to their skin, Sometimes it goes into like a red violet if they're like a really deep dark color. They're more cool toned versus if they have more of an orangey red or yellow skin tone in the lighter stages, then they are more warm toned. With more neutrals, you're gonna see a little bit of both. So if you can see, I do have some yellowness to my skin, but I also have some pinkness as well. If you can't tell on your face, because a lot of people's faces do tend to have a little extra redness to them. So if you can't tell on your face, a good place to look at is your arm. Sorry, my lighting is messing with the shot. So if you can't tell on your arm, if you can't tell on your face, look at your arm. Your arm is going to tell you a little bit more. So I can see that I definitely have some redness in that, but also a lot of that warmth too. So I know that I fall more into that neutral category. When you're testing foundation, you're going to look for that too. Does it look too pink on you or does it look too orange on you? That's something that you should ask yourself. Since a lot of people use their veins to determine how warm or cool they are, I do want to just quickly go over that. So typically, if you're a cooler skin tone, you are going to see more blues and purples in your veins. I don't know if you can see my veins because they're not very prominent, but if you have more of a warm undertone, your veins are going to be more green, more olive colored. And if you're more neutral, you're going to see some greens, maybe some blues, like really a mix between those. It's hard to tell in the camera, but my veins really are like maybe a blue-green color. So there's that. So when you're looking at matching skin tone, like I said, you're going to look for if it's too pink or if it's too golden. You know what? Let's start by taking off. I've got foundation on, so let's start by taking that off. All right, so I took off my foundation. Now you can see a little bit of that redness peeking through. I left on my eye makeup because it's not going to matter all that much, but I did remove all of my foundation so that you guys would have a good baseline for that. So now I'm going to put a little bit of foundation on, and remember I told you that I was more neutral. So I'm going to put it just a little bit. I'm not going to tell you which skin tone it is, and bear in mind this is a little light for me, but looking at that, that's definitely not my skin tone. And again, when I refer to skin tone, I'm talking about warmness or coolness. That's definitely not it. Okay, it may be a little bit light, but it's a little bit too pink. Okay, versus this, just like tap some of it off. And remember, I don't know if you guys know this, but testing your foundation on your wrist is not nearly as good as testing it on your face. So it's way better to test your foundation on your face because it's really, first of all, where you're going to be using it, and typically people's faces are just a little bit lighter than the rest of their body. That's pretty common. So matching it to your face and your cheek is going to be the best bet. Okay, so coming in here, this one, I don't know if you can see that, but it's very yellowy. Very, very, very yellowy. And next to it, you can tell how pink this one is. Looking at them side by side, one's very pink, one's very yellowy. So I can automatically rule out both of those. Now coming in with my last color, do you see how that like blends right in? I actually mixed these two colors to create this one, and you can't even barely see it on the skin because it does have those pink tones and those orange tones, and it literally just melted back in. I'm gonna make one more swatch because it's hard to see it. Do you see that? So neutral, cool, warm. And like side by side, you can really tell like that one's super pink, that one's really yellow, that one has a little bit of both. And I mixed them. I honestly mixed them to create my neutral tone. So that kind of shows you a little bit more. I know, at least brown girl problems, but I always find that if I'm not really careful, my foundation is really way too orange for me, and I get that a lot. But I have to like extra make sure that I pick a very neutral color, otherwise I look really, really, really warm. And like I said before, I always used to think that because I was brown, I was a warm tone. Just, I don't know, maybe I'm stupid, but that was like a misconception that I had. I'm glad I don't think that anymore, because now I can really easily match my skin tone without, I'm glad I don't think that anymore, because now I can really easily match my skin tone without trying too hard. I automatically know I'm looking for a neutral, and I automatically know that I'm gonna be in some tan, maybe a deep shade. I'm not super dark, so it might be a deep shade, probably not though. And it really taught me a lot about matching my foundation and matching other people's foundation. I know if you guys follow Robert Welsh on YouTube, I really enjoy his videos, really like him, but he does a tutorial on, sorry, is that distracting? I'm gonna take it off. So Robert Welsh does a tutorial on fine-tuning your foundation, and he uses a red, a yellow, and a white color to make a foundation color. And I know this trend was going around a while back, but it really does teach you how to match your skin tone. Like if you do need a little bit more red in it, you can really see that, versus if you really need a little bit more yellow, you can super see that. That's actually something I do with my cosmetology girls or students as I'm teaching makeup, is I'll go in and make them do this activity so they can kind of see how to match skin tone. I'll link that video in the description box below, because I think it's like a great resource. And I think that it's really helpful when you're learning how to match skin tone. And it's also one of the most important things when you're learning how to do makeup, is learning how to match your skin tone. Anyway, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, let me know, and I wish you guys the best of luck when you're trying to find the skin tone to match your skin, because it can be difficult.